get started. Again, thank you all for joining us. Like Melissa said, this is very important work that we are all doing. So I thank y'all for taking some time out of your busy day to be with us today to hear some great information about hosting summer interns and how we can make that experience better for both internship partners and for the interns themselves. So my name is Devontae Berry. I am the I'm sorry, I am the career and alumni engagement advisor here at CollegeBound. On the strategic partnerships team, I work with Melissa and my colleague, Miss Ellen here, who's going to introduce herself next. There we
Hi, I'm
go.
Ellen Spokes. I also work in the Department of Strategic Partnerships with Melissa and Devante, supporting our students in their pursuit of summer internships, fall internships, and other professional opportunities. Um, I will give, for those of you that aren't familiar with CollegeBound, I'll give a brief just overview of the organization. CollegeBound, for about 37 years, has pursuing this very audacious and ambitious goal of supporting Baltimore City students through high school, through college, providing them with access to the resources, financial and advising in the advising capacity to get to college, to make it through college. And our department is now supporting our scholars with professional opportunities and professional development skills to help them succeed once they get into the working world, which is one of the reasons why we're convening this webinar today. So thank you all so much for being here and for to our panelists for providing their expertise.
Um,
So I think what we'll do now is if we could have our panelists introduce themselves, and if you could each just speak a little bit about your relationship with the College Bound Foundation and how you have supported our students, and for Clayton, if you could just tell us a little bit about the work that you do at Morgan to support students. And maybe
Sure.
we'll, yeah. Clayton, do you want to start?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Good to see everyone. I am Clayton Lewis. I am the Assistant Director for Career Readiness at Morgan State University. My role involves managing an array of programming designed to help students build those foundational skills to enter the workforce. And that includes working with faculty, working with both profit, nonprofit organizations such as CollegeBound to ensure that students have the wraparound skills and support needed, and also the experiential learning opportunities needed to gain those skills so that they can be better prepared. I've been working with CollegeBound for quite some time. Most recently, we've ramped up our collaborative efforts where the College Bound advisors would host different events at our career center, and we would likewise support College Bound events across campus through visibility and also reinforcing that student support and access to resources that would advance their careers. I cannot remember how many years, I think probably about, I don't know, Melissa might know. But it's been probably a couple years, 3 or 4 years or so or more. And it's really been a joy. It's really been a joy seeing students come from high school to college, uncertain, unclear, and really leave with a strategy and leave with confidence as they graduate and move on into the marketplace. So thank you for having me this morning, and I look forward to continuing this conversation and also the partnership.
Nia, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Nia Imani Fields. I'm the Executive Director at Greenlight Fund Baltimore. We are a national nonprofit network that is guided by community voice and looking to increase inclusive prosperity, thriving communities across the country. I'm responsible for Baltimore. specifically, but we use a really community-driven process to make investments in areas that increase thriving communities, whether that's in education, workforce, housing, and other spaces. And we are a huge fan of CollegeBound. They are one of our partners, and as a part of our community engagement process, they co-hosted some of our listening sessions across the community. One of those sessions was actually held at Morgan, my alma mater. So shout out to the Bears who are on today. But we listened to college students as a part of our process as well, because they are indeed a part of community. And we want folks who come to Morgan and other universities across the city to also consider Baltimore as a home beyond college. But we have a multi-generational audience that we speak to and engage in a part of our investment decisions. We also have one of our staff members, Antoinette Brockenbrower, who is a proud alum of CollegeBound. So we have seen the product of the work that CollegeBound does, and I am a true believer in internships, having grown up in New York doing several of them throughout my high school and college career. It certainly helped to propel my professional experience and expand my social capital and networks. So the first chance I had when I was able to host interns ourselves, I jumped on the opportunity, and I'm excited to share more about our experience today.
Thank you. Dan?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Dan Neal, I'm the Vice President of Team Member Experience. Sorry, I forgot where I was today. Team Member Experience for the University of Maryland Medical System. So in my role, one of the things that we really focus on is how our team members kind of experience the medical system and move throughout, especially within the career development and partnering with all of our different roles that we have that can support students, can support new employees, and so on. So this actually, it will be about 2 years about this time ago that I received a phone call from Melissa that said, hey, we've got this thing we want you to work on. So this will be our third summer that we are hosting interns, and I'm really happy to be here today. I think it is a fabulous program. I've seen amazing results and continued conversations with the students from 2 years ago, last summer, and then looking forward to this. So happy to share what we've done and how we've kind of approached the process.
Great, thank you. So we're going to kick it off with the first question, which is specifically for Nia and for Dan. What advice would you give to an organization hosting interns for the first time? Nia, do you want to start?
Sure. Great question. So one is to understand what needs your organization has and how the support of young talent can help fill some of those needs and identify students who have skill sets that can meet those needs. We definitely want to set up interns for success, and the best way to do that is to have a clear vision on what the role would look like, what the expectations would be, what support you'll be able to provide, and then identify interns who have matched skill sets and interest. But you for sure will need to dedicate some time to helping to nurture and grow these students. You know, this for some of them may be their first professional experience, and you want to provide them opportunities to grow and learn, and support them as they might have some learning opportunities and growth opportunities along the way. For us, you know, we worked with our team to create a guidebook, if you will, laying out all of the expectations, who we are as an organization, what types of projects they can expect to work on, and timelines, and how we communicate as a team. And then we made sure that they felt like they were a part of our team. So they joined us for staff meetings, they provided input in decision making. And once we identified what their strengths were, we were able to let them kind of go off and run and then provide support along the way. But really being clear with your expectations and aligning skill sets with what your organization needs are. And if at all possible, kind of lean into the youth development side of things so that you can provide that experiential, hands-on youth development nurturing throughout their internship experience.
Great, thank you. Dan?
So yes, and yes, and yes to everything Nia just shared with you. But I think I'll add a twist to it as well, is as we've had the opportunity to host the students and kind of learn about where the students are in their college journey, in their personal life, I think it's been really important for us to kind of adjust and meet them where they are. And then also realize, I think as Nia said, for some of these students, it's their very first professional experience, and they may not have been in an office or in a professional work environment. And coaching or thinking through kind of how you approach that. And I think the more experience you can give the students is, yes, there's projects they should work on. The more that they can see you in your role or whoever you assign them to work with in their role, and actually how business is done or how projects are done. So we spend time with our students saying, hey, you're going to go to a bunch of meetings and you're going to sit there. And we, after the meeting, what did you learn? What did you hear? You may know nothing about that. And sometimes you'll get this blank face and they're going, what just happened? And it's so, what are the 3 or 4 key things? I think sometimes, in meetings, I won't say heated, but, it's conflict. And how do you resolve adult conflict when there's 2 opposing opinions? And getting that experience now and thinking about all those things as a first year person in your role that you would have loved to know. I'm like, why couldn't somebody have told me that? Or why couldn't I have sat through this? This is a great 8-week opportunity to expose them. And then the other thing I will say is, as much as I believe in structure and everything you said, is unstructured is really helpful as well, from the perspective of you may have a plan for the day and walk in and there's a new opportunity. We spend a lot of time also with the students on, in healthcare is a little different, and we're obviously in the community that they live, but going through different hospitals and kind of just helping them understand what is our connection back to the community they came from and how can they best serve it. So as Nia and I think Clayton said, is as we want these students to return as well as professionals, is helping them understand there's all these different opportunities. And the one other thing I'll say is, you may have a student coming to you that actually isn't matched for your organization. So last year I had a fashion major. And the fashion major, and it's looking as like, now I'm in HR and I'm an intern. What in the world am I going to do? And so I think it was really important, is just kind of, hey, here's the different things, here's understanding, but also I can say this is what I got my degree in. I've never once practiced ever. And so it's, you find your own path, but I have all those core skill sets. And I just had a conversation with her last week, right before she graduated, and she is now enrolled in a master's program for data analytics. So whatever, these are these opportunities to really help them expand their mind in professional, well-curated settings. And I think that's really important, is that flexibility that we have. Sorry, Ellen, that's very long, but I'm very—
No, that's great. Thank you.
That first year, I remember having a, like, what am I got myself into? And you figure it out, and you figure it out. The students figure it out as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. So our next question is for Clayton. Clayton, you have the opportunity to work with students who are still in college on like career readiness, things like that. So in your opinion, what do you think are some things that students wish employers understood about them?
Yeah, great question. By the way, I'm really happy to hear how both Nia and Dan are navigating their internship experience. It makes me want to to be an intern again because of the quality of what's being done. I'm like, oh my God. So to your question, Devante, I think it's not a mystery, but our interns are managing more than just the internship. Some of them are managing life, depending on where and when the internship is taking place. If it's over the summer, they may not have to, manage a course load unless they're taking like a summer course. But if it's like during the semester, a lot of our interns are managing both the internship as well as school. Some of them are actually caregivers. So that's really at the heart of it. It's their first time. I love what Dan said, it's their first time. So there's also that uncertainty about career direction, and also a very high curiosity about getting clarity as to what's a good fit for them. And I do like that example in terms of transferable skills, understanding that, hey, uh, initially I may not be quite matched exactly, but what are some skills that, can be transferred that I already have, that can be transferred into the project or into the environment that I'm currently in? So those would be the 2 to 3 biggest things, that they're balancing and managing more than just the internship. For some of them, it's their first time. So there's that uncertainty, but then that high curiosity to explore what's a good fit. and just really being pliable and flexible. So those would be the top trending, I guess, internal conversations that they may be having with regards to what they would want their employers to understand a little bit more about them.
Mhm. Yeah,
That's
thank you.
great. Thank you. So this question is actually for all three of you, and you can kind of make it your own. But how do you set expectations with interns in the first week to ensure a strong start?
I can kick us off. I think clarity is kind. I heard that quote somewhere at a workshop and it resonated with me. Being really clear and specific is important, and having those early conversations at the start. I think before that conversation with the intern, you need to be clear with yourself to know what the expectations and options are for support and alignment with the intern's skill sets so that you come prepared for this conversation. I think in those early conversations, it should also be about getting to know the intern as a human. Like Clayton said, these are people who are coming with lots of different experiences and backgrounds, and in order to best support them, you should have a good understanding about who they are and what they bring to the table. So understanding who they are, understanding with clarity what your expectations are from this position, and then leaving some space. Dan mentioned this as well, leaving some space for some organic growth and shifting, because you want to make sure that the experience is right for the intern. So you might have had a clear vision on what the projects and assignments and activities would be, but based on their experience, you might change that a little bit. Um, so finding out what they hope to get from this experience, what success looks like for them after their experience should also help you to shape what that looks like. And then providing some of those things. I think also talking through communication styles so you know how best to communicate throughout the experience, whether they are texting, GChat, email, phone call, like what are the best ways to talk and check in so that you all can be on the same page throughout the experience.
Great, thank you. Dan, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so I think the clarity is incredibly important, but I think there's two other things I'll add to that is when we offer the information is the whys behind it. So, talking about being on time and why that is important, what that does. And I think a lot of it builds into one of the things that we talk about in the first few days is personal brand. So what is the personal professional brand that you're building? And, are you the one that is arriving early? Are you detail oriented? How do you want to appear and how do you want to approach this? And so I think a little bit of it is it's me setting expectations, but it's a lot of, so what are they trying to get out of this? What do they want through this so that we can adjust our styles? And I think the communication one, thank you, Nina, for saying that. I completely forgot about that the first year. And, I was like, oh, just, send me a message. And it's like, oh, but they never used Teams like I use Teams on a daily basis. And texting was clearly the way that we wanted to communicate. And I think that's helping them understand is when something comes up, is people are more understanding when they know about it in advance than when they find out afterwards. So if you're running late for the day or if there's traffic and you hadn't planned for that, just tell us. And I think setting those expectations about there is room for error, but it is also how you communicate the error is really important. So I think that's always where we start with it is the why. Why are we asking you to do these things? And then it's what brand are you ultimately after 8 weeks with us? What can you say your professional brand is?
Great, thank you. And Clayton, do you have a perspective on that question?
Yeah, I think both Dan and Nia covered quite a lot. I'm a little bit old school as well with regards to actually having something tangible that I can have in my hand with regards to the expectations or the onboarding experience, or even the other connecting teams that the student would probably work with. So having access to either a hard copy document or something online that they can refer to because conversations are great, but sometimes folks forget. So having something to kind of relay to as part of that onboarding plan, something tangible or a shared document that they can go back after, because, some of them may be overwhelmed, in that first day, first couple days, having something to go back to refer to would also be helpful in black and white to kind of understand what those expectations are.
Great.
Yes. And so the next question you guys all kind of touched on a bit. So just to get a bit more perspective, how do you give feedback to interns who may be new to professional environments?
I'll start. I think having frequent communication and building relationship and rapport is good. So if you meet with them on that first day to do onboarding and then you don't talk to them again until, 2 weeks later, you're not building relationship with the student. So having ongoing communication and calling things out that are growth opportunities in the moment, I think is helpful and giving some guidance on how you might think through differently or ask them their perspective on what did you learn from this experience? What can we do to change and what support do you need so that we can get to this level of what we're hoping to achieve, whether that's timeliness or whether that's the execution of a specific project. But being clear and direct in the moment and then giving some examples of what the expectations are. And then again, asking what support is needed to help them to get there. If you're partnering with an organization like CollegeBound, they also have you all as a support. So, being in communication with you all so that because you all have a deep relationship with the students as well, so that you can provide some support. There might be things they're more comfortable sharing with you all that they're not comfortable sharing with us if they're experiencing a challenge or something of that effect. So having that partnership is also helpful.
Yeah, and I would say the last part is really important. Is I think as I've learned to kind of manage the interns, is the communication with CollegeBound is from a reinforcement of the message of saying, hey, this part, or it's they don't seem to be enjoying it, or I'm trying to crack through. Is there a different way? And sometimes it's just a different perspective, or I'm brand new. I've only worked with this student for a week or 2 weeks, and there's a deep, long relationship.
Mhm.
And it's either that conversation you have, or it's simply saying like, "Hey, have you ever asked about this or thought about this?" And it's great to have a partner there that knows the students so well.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is for Clayton. What are the biggest gaps you see in internship readiness for college students?
So this keeps coming up quite a few times with the several employers that I've worked with, and that is that sometimes interns are afraid to ask questions. With whether it's, being new, being, a little bit intimidated by the new environment. They're a little bit intimidated to ask questions. So for our supervisors and our employers, creating that space for that psychologically safe space where students can feel comfortable asking questions, specifically if they run into a challenge on a project. I've seen, sometimes where students would kind of try to figure it out on their own. Because sometimes there's a fear of, okay, if I ask, I might, it might show that I may or may not know something. So on the supervisor side, just creating that psychologically safe space. And also with regards to helping students to understand where the resources are and where the access maybe to other team members that may actually have the solution that can help. Um, I think sometimes our interns may not know how open other staff members are to support and to help them along their journey. So I think just creating that environment where interns feel, hey, it's okay not to know. And hey, if I have an issue, I can not only ask maybe my supervisor, but if there's a joint or an interdisciplinary project that's going on that requires input from other divisions or departments or representatives from those departments, it's okay to also ask that particular point of contact as well. So that's the biggest I would say, one of the biggest gaps. And then the second would be just navigating organizational culture. Even within one organization, each department may have a unique set of expectations, a unique set of, inter-office cultural practices. One office may be a little bit more professional if it's client facing, if it's more on the engineering or the tech side. Just in terms of professional dress, that particular expectation might be to be a little bit more relaxed in terms of professional attire. So helping the intern to understand and navigate that organizational culture and probably the subcultures within the organization would be extremely helpful in, just bridging that experiential gap. So those are the top two things that I've noticed kind of trending with some of our students here.
Alan, can I add to what Clayton just mentioned? You because I think it's a great point of students not always feeling comfortable to ask questions. I find that being a supervisor of interns also allows us as leaders to grow and develop and learn how to best support. So I try to ask questions like what information did you wish you had at the start of this that would have been helpful for you, or what additional support would have been useful, like in the middle of projects, because then I know, okay, they might not be thinking to ask this, or I might have rushed through this particular topic. I need to slow down here. So also asking them questions to give them space and room to build that comfort in being able to ask on their own.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so next question is for everyone. As you all are, leaders who manage student interns or who may work directly with students, so what are some ways that you all or you think supervisors can help interns feel valued and included on their teams?
I'll start with that. I think it goes back to something I said is kind of how we designed our program. And what I think is really important for the interns is it's not just about the projects or kind of the classic, if you will, intern work that they're going to do. It's about all the other experiences of working in a professional adult environment. And so I think taking them to meetings, putting them in conversations, that really kind of help stretch them a little bit, but also within safe spaces. So, as Clayton talked about, the psychologically safe environment is we trust you. We know this is with your skill set. Take a crack at it. The worst that can happen is that we talk about it and we figure out a different plan. We're not going to let you fail. It's a fail safe mentality. So I think, I really think the more that, opportunities that you have to invite the students directly into your role and not just what they were assigned in their internship, the better off that they will be from that and really take away that experience because it really helps them on day one of their first professional job kind of know what happens behind the door.
I agree with Dan. I think everyone knows the phrase, it's not only what you know, but who you know. So I always try to expand as many who you knows as possible for the intern while they're with me. So if I have a connection, we have a connection. It's kind of how I envision my role in leadership. So in invitations and introductions to any special events where I'm going, where there are some key folks that can help expand the networks and opportunities for the intern, making those introductions and the warm introductions, I think is helpful. Having a welcome lunch or breakfast on their first day with the full team is a tangible thing. And then for our staff meetings, we do something called connection before content before each meeting. And that's an opportunity for our team to continue to build relationship. And we rotate who leads that connection before content question each meeting. So our intern was a part of that rotation and led some of those questions as well. So we all were continuing to build relationship through the time together.
Great.
Nice. Clayton, anything to add to that?
No, I will echo some of the key themes that both Nia and Dan mentioned is, creating community and a sense of belonging through these different activities is really key. Interns want to feel like they're part of the organization. So treating them as such only enhances that feeling of inclusion. And I think it would only boost their confidence in terms of their work output as well.
Great. Sounds good.
Thank you. So this is also for all three of you, and Clayton, you'll take your own spin on this, but what does a successful intern look like at the end of the summer or the end of the time that they're with you? Nia, can you start?
Yeah, I think the thing that stood out for me the most at the end of my recent interns experience, she's born and raised in Baltimore, and she told our team that she sees Baltimore differently now because of the internship,
Mhm.
which was exciting for me. Part of her role was supporting our community engagement work, so we spoke to a lot of different constituents, met with a lot of partners, we're at a lot of events. So she saw the different sectors across the city. And for her to have been born and raised here to say, I had no idea Baltimore had all of this, or that these complexities look like this, or that you can solve this problem by handling it this way. So to me, that meant a lot because it meant that she learned something beyond just the tactical responsibilities of the job, which I feel like she also grew in that way as well, but she also had a different relationship with her city and expanded her relationships across the community that will follow her throughout her career. So that definitely was um, a success for me.
Dan?
So absolutely love that because I think that is a community-based organization. That's exactly what we want is for people to understand that and beyond all the opportunities that are available to them as Baltimore residents and all the need that we have to retain high talent like them in our community. So I think the other kind of things I look at is Nia mentioned it earlier is the connections. Is do they know how to build and access their network? So throughout their internship with me, they're going to meet a lot of people. One of the groups they spend a lot of time with is our recruitment team. Do they know that they now know all 40 of our recruiters, or they know the executive in charge of that? And that is a golden ticket to have more conversation. Did they have a presence? Do they now have a presence on something like LinkedIn in a professional manner? And have they connected to all the people they've met? And do they understand how to kind of sustain that network? So, I offer them and say out of the 9 interns that I've had over the last couple of years, is 7 of them followed up is like, hey, check in with me every 3 months or 6 months or a year. Is, as you graduate, it may not be in the medical field, but in a different field, I've met other people and we can connect you through that. So leveraging their network. And then one of the themes I try to take away, and it's always with a balance, is the interns, getting them the ability in their head to say yes to anything put in front of them. With a balance of time, but as somebody comes to them and says, hey, you're going to be an intern in a healthcare system, you said yes once. So now we're going to ask you to do this project, or we're going to do this project. And when you go back to school and somebody says, hey, I think you should be in a leadership role for this activity, or somebody says, hey, you should come. How do you keep saying that yes to kind of expand your horizons? Is you're in school developing all these different types of skills. When you hit the professional environment, how do you kind of trust that other people see things in you and you say yes? You take that risk. And if it's not working out, you have that ability to tell somebody and say, no, that one wasn't for me. But more importantly, you're kind of tuned into this, how you operate within the world. And I think that's always what I look at is, do they kind of constantly use that networking, and they know how to keep expanding their horizons, which is, something so important that they're getting in school, whether they realize it or not, that it directly applies back to the workforce.
Great, thank you. And Clayton, can you put your own spin on that in terms of what a successful internship experience looks like for your students? Are there certain expectations that you have with that?
Absolutely, and I'll keep it super short. Nia started us off with the quotes, so I'll add my quote here. Skills pay the bills. Did they leave with any improvement on their professional or technical skills, depending on their role? And I think you for those who are on the call, you can hear this thread throughout the conversation, the interns themselves leave feeling more confident and prepared to enter into the workforce at that time, full time as appropriate, when they graduate, or some students actually receive offers before they graduate. So again, skills pay the bills. Did they leave with improved and sharpened professional or technical skills? And I love the layers that Dan and Nia mentioned in their discourse with regards to confidence and executive presence. And are they feeling more confident? Are they ready to go out into the workforce? So that's my spin, Ellen, on it.
Thank you.
And then this next question, you all kind of already touched on. It's directed towards Clayton, but I would like to hear everyone's feedback on this as well. What advice would you give to supervisors to help their students or their interns grow their confidence?
Get an internship with Nia and Dan. Um, I'm having fun here, guys. I'm glad that this is recorded because if we, if you can take the conversation that has happened this morning and really it's so rich. It touched on office etiquette, making sure that students are aware with regards to the inter-office cultural norms, creating a welcoming environment. All of the ingredients that was shared this morning is part of that growth and that confidence, and it plays a part. So I'm not gonna, add too much onto that. I would just say, hey, get an internship with Nia and Dan, and you'll be just fine. You'll be set for life. But yeah, in all seriousness, there's no cookie cutter approach to this. Each organization has their own unique strengths and abilities that they can add and invest in the intern that they have, whether it's throughout the summer or throughout the semester. But I think the best practices, some of the best practices have been laid out here. And if students and also supervisors follow the formula, I think students would be better off for it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And this is for Nia and Dan. This is one of our last questions before we'll open up to question and answers. But as hosts of our CollegeBound interns, what advice do you have for those attending today or watching the recording about what makes you want to host interns and the value added to your organization and companies?
I
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. 'Cause I am a huge, huge believer in internships because there's nothing quite like an experiential opportunity to jump into an experience, learn, build relationships and connections. You can read about it, you can do a course. All of those things are a part of the growth and learning experience, but getting a hands-on opportunity to work with low pressure, low work pressure, um, helps you to expand your interests and opportunities and helps you to kind of fine tune what you like and what you don't like. Dan said he had a fashion major that has now completely switched to another field, and that probably is in part due to this internship experience. So it really is a great way for students to learn and grow. As a host, I'm an educator at heart. I'm in nonprofit philanthropy now, but I had 19 years experience at the University of Maryland and in youth development. So my heart is always going to be with nurturing young people. Um, Financially, it is an asset to prepare our workforce, our future workforce. So there is benefit to the employer and to industries. As a human who cares about community, it also should be our responsibility that we care about the young people that are in our communities and neighborhoods and giving them opportunities to grow and expand. So whether you lead with your heart or with your financial bottom line or both, I think there is room for opportunity for hosting interns. I will say there's a caveat. Sometimes people look at interns as another body to get work done. And while that can happen, because you are increasing the capacity. It also takes more time. You're going to have to give more instructions more than once. You're going to have to maybe, work alongside someone and you might have been able to get something done in 10 minutes and it might take an hour when you're working with an intern. So you have to give room and space for that, but I think the value at the end is well worth it.
Thank you. Dan?
So I could give you like a 45-minute answer because I'm pretty passionate about this, but there's a couple things that I will say is kind of to the other question, but one of the places I start. So we've tried to double our number of interns every year. So this year we've got 10, hopefully, maybe a little more. And it's great because our organization has the size and capacity to manage that. But the first thing, so what I can't manage 10, they would not get the right experience. So this is where you leverage your network, and this is what I would recommend to everyone else is get everybody else involved. So I've called my 10 best friends at work and said, hey, guess what I've got for you this summer? And we're going to figure something out that's going to be a great experience. And so getting other people involved, I think is critical because the diversity of views is also really important from the internships perspective. But the one thing that I failed to say all along, I apologize, is have fun. Like I strong proponent of fun at the workplace this is something I was talking to one of the students, you're going to do for the next 40 years. You might as well find a place where you enjoy it and have some fun with it. So I think that's a really important aspect to build into it. And I'll just, share just a couple of things that I've seen, and it's what keeps us coming back to it is, so I had a young woman that internship with us the first year. She had recently graduated, hadn't had really good professional internships, so she was going to go back to the Amazon warehouse. And there was a career there for her, but it wasn't what she had studied for. It wasn't what she planned. So she stayed with us for about 10 weeks after the internship and kind of temped in a bunch of roles and settled into our call center for human resources and really just kind of started growing. But you could see it was kind of gritted against her personality for the last year and a half. But she kept with it because she knew she started enrolling other courses. Like there was a means to an end with it. And then she was offered, because she doesn't say no to things now, she was offered an opportunity to come cover at one of our hospitals for a maternity leave. And there is a completely different person that is excelling and thriving here. And it's because I'm so proud of that because I've seen her leverage her support structure, those things we've talked about. And again, here was somebody that was really not going to use their degree and kind of go back to what they knew and were comfortable and really stretch themselves. And I think that's such a critical component of what we're trying to do here is she, during the internship the first week when I talked about like being late and explaining that's something to struggle with is she opens the office every day. She's the first person that everybody sees and they walk into our hospital on the HR side of it and absolutely loves what she does. And take away half of that, like it's a pretty good story. And we've got somebody that, will thrive within our community. And so I think that's why we keep coming back to those types of things as we see those successes. And it's just a different viewpoint for everybody. And I love that aspect.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
I think at this point we can open up to questions. I know we have a few people online. Does anyone feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question?
Hi, yeah, I'm Sabrina Donick. I'm with DPR Construction, and I did have a question for the panel. I am getting a couple interns this summer. I'm getting some high school students. And I was wondering, from the interns that you see, what are the professional skills that you're seeing that you have to develop with them most often to give them that professional like groundwork?
So high school definitely is different than college. I have done that in previous roles as well. I think communication is one of the top ones, and learning what communication is accepted in the culture that you're within, both style and forms of communication. Um, oh gosh, what's the word? Being timely in responses and communication, being on time to work, and those types of things. But I think understanding what the expectation in the workplace is kind of the groundwork. Like, what's the culture like here? What is the style of engagement? Um, what when you have a concern, who do you go to? What is the kind of hierarchy of sharing concern and confusion, or having issues? Um, I would say is the big one. Understanding kind of what their experience is, so you know if there's going to be transportation issues. Are they taking public transportation, or do they have a car? Are they riding, so that you know kind of what to expect and how you can best support them, I think is another one.
Yeah, that's really helpful to know. Thank you, Nia.
And I will just add to communication. So I have a teenage son myself who's going off to college, and everything is acronym through text message. I can't understand half the things he says to me. So I am seeing that sometimes they're communicating that way in email with lowercase letters when it should be capital, not using punctuation. That share what tools they can use, because we all are using the AI tools now where they're correcting speller and grammar and all of that. So lean on the tools that exist if you need some trouble, if you need some help and support in writing a professional email, as an example.
Yeah, no, that was kind of the first thing I had thought about when I saw some of their responses come in, and I was like, oh, that's a run-on sentence. There's no capital letters, I was like, okay. All right, thank
That's
you.
how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing I'll add, it includes communication, but it's funny when you said, Sabrina, the first thing you saw in those types of things, because I was watching the video interviews that CollegeBound sent over, and that is actually something I just suggest to everybody. I make them watch at the end of their internship and say, hey, when we talk about personal brand and professional brand, how have you changed and how have you developed? And I think that's part of communication we don't talk about. So a lot of them immediately said, because I was just watching one today, it was very clearly in their dorm room. And they clearly had not cleaned up previously. And so it's just one of those things is I've had that and I've sat down and made them watch the video. I don't watch it with them and say, what did you learn? And they're like, well, I should have learned my background. So I think it's those types of, it's that professional presence is this is serious work. And we've invited you in, kind of meet us there, but everything else needs on the communication side of it.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a great idea. I thought about showing it to them afterwards, but I was on the fence. But I think you might have just sealed that for me. Thank you.
I'll also add, Sabrina, because they don't teach this as often as they used to in schools, but if you have opportunities to share like things about direct deposit and why retirement savings is important, and HR, but like all the things that some employers may not take the time for a new employee to walk through, like how do you look at your timesheet? Is it correct? Like those types of basics, I think is really useful for a high school student because they don't talk a lot about that in school.
Yeah, that's a good point. I might have to do like a whole like HR, you know, personal development for them so that they know what to look out for their own stuff. Thank you.
Any other questions? I have a question, actually, I'd like to pose. I'm curious in the work that we do, and this is really for all of you. So many of the students that we work with, their professional experience has been in customer service, whether it's in a restaurant or retail. They really don't have experiences in a more professional environment. So what advice can you give to prospective employers or prospective intern sites to be able to understand the value of those experiences and sort of look beyond that for other characteristics that would make students an asset to your organizations, businesses, or corporations?
I have a couple thoughts. One, I think CollegeBound as a partner can help in that when you're talking with employers to talk about those transferable skills. But I think as a student, it's important for you to learn. So you were a host at a restaurant. What skill sets did you use? How did you navigate conflict? How did you manage multiple projects or multiple requests at the same time? What happened when someone called out of work? So they need to also be able to understand regardless of the job title, what skills did you learn and how are you communicating that on your resume? How are you communicating that in your video in this case? So that it's not just the job and the title, but what skills, like you said, skills pay the bills, Clayton said. So what skills did you learn in school and in any professional experience, no matter what level it is, that can be an asset. I also believe it's important for you to learn a little bit about the jobs you're interested in. So if you are interviewing for a particular internship, learn a little bit about the organization so you can speak to it and said, at Fridays, I had to do this. And I think that might help in this part of your job because you also work in this space. So giving them some tools to be able to communicate how their skills are transferable, and not diminish what they've done, whether they are a cashier or whether they are a host. What skills are you learning that can be transferred?
And I would say you exactly the same thought is never apologize for the experience you have. Is so, in 10 years, you may not have your job as a sales clerk or cashier on your resume anymore. But right now, that is the experience you have. And how do you leverage that? And it's how do you tell your story? And so there's two things that I would say, to CollegeBound, but to everybody else as you kind of talk through this is so, you can say I'm a cashier, but what really have you done and how have you described that? So we had somebody that was interning and doing her main project was transferring vaccination records out of paper files into electronic ones. And so it was data entry. And she's like, well, I don't know what I would say about that. I was like, timeout. Like, think about what you've done is you've now given, when we have an outbreak or we have an exposure, you've now given a clinician immediate access to the records. So when you tell your story, we're not saying, well, I entered data. I'm not saying, well, I checked out customers. I've, this is going to sound silly, but I've given the customer the quickest checkout experience so that they can get back home to their food or to their life, whatever it might be. So I think it's all about it's a storytelling game, and it's how you don't apologize for anything because it's all valuable and it will shape and form something that you will think about later.
And to add to that, Ellen, I think you alluded to it, and that is that if a student secured an internship with your organization, that means that they are coming to the table with a certain measure of value. All right. It may not be as polished because of their prior experiences. And as you mentioned, they may not have had the experience to work in a more polished environment or more professional environment. And this is where the role of the supervisor comes in as supervisor mentor or supervisor coach to really help to harness the value that the student is bringing, but also polish those areas that may not have been refined, again, due to a lack of experience. So I think that you alluded to it, you hit the nail on the head. Supervisors do wear a couple different hats, right? It's not just, okay, I'm a supervisor, but going back to the beginning of the conversation, understanding why you are bringing on interns and what your ultimate purpose is, which is that investment into our students so that they can be positive contributors when they get into the workforce full as time allows, and being
Yeah.
intentional in that to be able to mentor those areas that are less polished, while still reinforcing the confidence in the intern that, hey, you already have value. You're coming to the table with value. You were able to secure this internship. So let's work on your strengths, but then let's polish those areas where you might be a little less refined. So that would allow the supervisor to take on more of a mentorship, coaching kind of approach, in addition to the policy and the practice that's also expected in that role.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions from the audience? All right, I do have one more question before we wrap up. So as you know, supervisors of interns, as Ms. Ellen said, a lot of our students are coming with limited professional experience, and like Sabrina noted, we have students who are sending emails as if they're texting. So how do you all, or what advice do you have to encourage students to be their best professional self? And what type of grace do you give to students who may not be familiar with the professional side of things and who are like kind of just stepping their foot into the professional world?
I'll share that. I mentioned it earlier that as a host of interns, this is a growth opportunity for us as well. So I still feel like I can blend in on a college campus, although my son would probably disagree with me. But it's been a while, right? Since I've been in high school, since I've been in college. So we have to also re-educate ourselves on what the culture is like for them now because we were once in their shoes and we had to be course corrected and guided and nurtured and all of those things. So that's why that building of relationship is so important, getting to know them beyond just their role and what they're going to bring to the organization, but learn a little bit about their background and what joy, what brings them joy, what brings them stress and concern so that you can get to know them as a human. That also will help to build relationships to be able to course correct when necessary and understand perhaps why they are responding this way or why are they showing up this way. It might be because of some of their experience that they have had. And then just generations are different. There's a lot that I am still grappling with. My sister and I joke all the time because teachers in the school building are coming to school with leggings and t-shirts. And like when I used to be a substitute teacher, I was not even allowed to wear jeans. And this is, 20 years ago, but things are different and we have to continue to understand what is the culture like in today's professional world. Where can we grow and expand and be nimble? And then where are some hard lines that we need to kind of bring them up to speed so that they are successful beyond this experience? But I think it's a growth opportunity on both sides. But building that relationship and trust, I think, is the key to all of that because then you can have those candid conversations like this text message is not going to work. It might work with me. I'm gonna give you some grace, but once you leave this office, you might not have that same grace with your next employer. So we have to fine tune these things now. So, having those honest conversations is important.
Definitely.
Yeah, I would say the grace, we talk about it in our first day, it kind of weans off as we go throughout the program because we set those expectations and it's but there is that re-education and kind of Nia said it earlier, the coaching in a moment has to occur. Because if you talk about it 3 days later, I mean, I can barely remember what happened 3 days later. I can't imagine for someone balancing so many things. So, but I also, the one thing I will say, and I just encourage everybody to think about it is, I hold myself to a pretty high degree of personal accountability and expectations. And I talk to the students when I first meet them is, I'm not going to, I expect you to do the same. And we're not going to lower our expectations of what it takes to be successful here. But we are going to help you understand that so that when you leave, you can define what your level of accountability and what you want to do in the future is. And like I said, I have a young woman who's in her third year with us right now that struggled with attendance through her internship. We now rely on her to open the office or struggle with tardiness. And it's one of those, we've helped that growth and development there. But I will also say asking the whys is sometimes they're late, quite frankly, because the bus can't get to us, or there's traffic, or they're relying on Uber, or they're relying on a parent. And if we don't understand those stories, we're not going to be successful with it. So just asking the whys and then being very clear about the expectations and how thin is the plank at that point and what can we do? But then I always call CollegeBound and say, hey, struggle with this. What's the other opinion or what am I not seeing?
And Devonte, another strategy that you can add for some organizations where it's not the first time that they're having interns, um, call in some alumni interns because again, that building that relationship, sometimes that there's a power dynamic between the supervisor and the intern, but hearing from a peer or a near peer who has gone through that internship experience that can relate to a little bit more closer to when they were an intern at X organization or at Y organization can be a really helpful strategy to, kind of bridging that gap and making up that difference as well quickly.
Mhm. Definitely. Thank you. It looks like we have another question in the chat. As we mentioned, things changing and the world evolving. So how are we handling technology with encouraging students to incorporate emerging tools like AI into their work? So we understand it's different in academia, but in the professional setting, there is a different set of standards. So how do we um, encourage students to use AI in their work?
Yeah, so Devante, I will answer that as that's actually something we've been talking about heavily is okay, how I'm very curious what the students will come in and say how they use it. And we as an organization are trying to figure out how we're going to use it. So I think it's one of those, we've talked about it, we're going to spend half a day kind of going through that because it is so important. And it's kind of like, I remember back when I took calculus and I couldn't use a calculator. Like that is the most ridiculous thing now. And so saying, hey, you're going to be in work, you couldn't use it. I don't know what we would do without that. And I think it's such a critical thing, but I think it's a direct conversation, right? It's different than academia. If I'm going to ask you to write a policy, I want you to write the best policy. I don't care if you took, NIA's policy and just made it our own at this point. And AI is going to help us with that. So I think it's something that has to be addressed because to be completely honest, I think I'm going to learn more from them than I am going to be from working with my own team on this one.
Mhm.
I agree. I shared that this is just as much a growth opportunity for us as hosts as it is for the students, and technology is definitely one of those. My team will tell you I dislike learning new technology platforms and once I get it, I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense. Like, why didn't I do this earlier? But it takes me longer to get to that acceptance because I get comfortable in doing things the way I know how to do them. But I have some colleagues across the country that are using AI to take notes. I actually enjoy taking notes, and it's how I learn and retain information by doing it. But I know that I also have to use the skills that can expand my capacity, and note taking might be one of those things, and summarizing data and that type of thing. So I definitely agree with Dan. I think this is this place where we can learn from them as far as what skills and new technologies are they aware of, and how can that help to shape our organization and do things differently or more efficiently because of the new tools that are available to us. And then, I think our role again is to teach them of the importance of um, security and data and professionalism and using things responsibly and bias and how that shows up in AI. I think that's where we can continue to infuse those learnings and that don't rely solely on technology. Humans are still important, and what does that look like and where's the balance?
And I do want to add from the academic side as well, but also in my collaborations with huge companies like Deloitte that actually have like a global AI institute. There's something that they mentioned that I infuse in my education to students, and Nia, you touched on it, and that is the power of with, all right? Using AI with human judgment, using AI with human intelligence, using AI with human discernment is really, really key. What we have seen is, sometimes there's a imbalance in terms of how much of AI is being used, and that's where some of the biases may come in because of the input, right? The data that's being input. So that's why it's really key to ensure that there's that balance. There's that appropriate balance where we're infusing intelligence, knowledge, experience with the efficiency of AI to produce a policy or a document or a project or a presentation, whatever it is. So just as a baseline, understanding whether you're in academia or whether you're in industry, not having such an imbalance where things seem a little too perfect, because I've seen that as well, even with students developing their resumes or cover letters, different things like that. We can tell when it's not them because it's super perfect. And however, we can also tell when there's an infusion of that personal story and that journey that the student has taken to produce what they've produced. So just want to leave us with that as well, just the power of with and not being void of, one or the other. We're going to have to use technology. That's the age that we're living in. But technology and AI in particular cannot make certain judgment calls with regards to the impact or some of the nuances necessary to do a particular task or job.
Nice. Thank you. I appreciate it. Those were great answers. Um, Last call. Do we have any other questions from anyone in the room?
No question, but I just want to tell you guys this was fantastic and thank you so much.
Anytime, we're here for you.
You're welcome.
Devontae, Allen,
Nice.
remember they said
I
anytime.
know. Thank you so much for being such awesome partners with us
Yes.
and for believing in our students because it's
Absolutely.
really inspiring to know that you're really dedicated to their development and their growth. And it means so much to us and certainly means a lot to them.
Yes.
Thank you all.
I
Thank
hope
you.
everyone on the call was able to take some good insight away from this.
So
Wonderful.
So we'll give you your gift of time back to you. We're ending a little bit early, but thank you all again so much for participating. We hope that those of you who are on the call as participants took away some really great information. And I hope we all have productive summers with our interns. And if you know of other organizations or businesses that are willing to step into that role as internship sites, please let us know. We still have many qualified students who are looking for opportunities. So thank you all so much. Have a great day.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.